Testing 1, 2. Okay. All right. We are ready to go, go, go. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to week 44 of Bible Day Live. Now, Bible Day Live is the thing that we don't really, there's no teaching. Maybe there's some teaching, but my intention is not to teach anyone. My intention is not to preach to anyone. I am a student of the life of Jesus Christ, and I believe that every book of the Bible points to Jesus. And so what we do here is go through the Bible every year, and we're here every week going through the Bible chronologically. So the thing for this year is to go through the Bible chronologically and figure out how the narrative of the Bible goes and fits together, because we all know that the Bible doesn't lay itself out the way we have our Bibles regular laid out. They're not laid out in chronological order. And even though I've been around church all my life, I've had trouble getting the Bible, the story, the narratives, the people, the towns. Some people are named alike. So that is why we are going through the Bible this year chronologically. And there's a reading plan that we use, and you can get a copy of the one that I'm using here at BibleRoom.org, or you can use your own. Tyndale House has a great chronological Bible, as well as a really good plan, right? But this year I'm refining the plan, because I'm finding that the place that the days cut off and the weeks cut off, it's not in logical storyline places that it cuts off. So I'll be changing some of those things for 2026. And so I'm gathering all of that information this year in 2025 to make that happen in 2026. So I'm going to go ahead and put up here that what we're looking at this week is Matthew 19 through 26, Mark 10 through 14, and Luke 18 through 22, and John 11 through 15. And I already have my screen share going, so I'm just going to bring it up right now. And screen share and push it out. All right. So we can go to the next item here and say, got it. All right. So like I mentioned, Jesus in every book. I believe the writing and distribution of the Bible is an act of God, a faithful act of love by the Father. The narrative from Genesis to Revelation is a unified story pointing to Jesus, with his presence revealed through prophecies, types, and symbols throughout the Old Testament, and explicitly detailed in the Gospels. This means while Jesus is the center figure in the New Testament, his future arrival and redemptive work are foreshadowed in earlier books through events like his role as kinsman redeemer in Ruth, or the Passover lamb in Exodus. So he is in every book. So with that idea, we've come up, just this week it was given to us that the theme for 2027 should be connecting Jesus to the Old Testament prophecies, types and symbols. Okay, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. Okay, but because we already have the oh, we already have the theme for 2026, and it's the same on this slide, but it should be a different one, and it's escaping my mind right now what we said we were going. Oh, in 2026, we're going to, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to revamp our reading plan so that it cuts off more logically for storylines and ideas. So that's what's happening in 2026 as we go through the Bible in a year. In 2025, of course, we're dealing with the physical layout and chronological clarity of the Bible. So I am sore tempted to fix this right now because it looks like I'm the only person watching. So if I'm the only person watching, then I could just fix it and nobody would know. 2026 through the Bible theme. I really want this to be um okay, let's see how long this will take. So I'm going to put me on the screen and I'm going to stop sharing. I don't think I've ever done this. Um you know what? I can still share this cuz I didn't know it was going to be this easy, but here we go. So the 2026 theme is revamping the chronological um, chronological reading plan. That's what we're going to do with input from this year as we go through here. Okay, so now we've got to reshare everything and let's see how that works. I've never done that before live. So we're going to do it again. And this reading through the Bible and this broadcast, or what do you call it? This live stream is supposed to be fun. And I am not pretending like I am some expert. I am an expert in, using software and some other things that, that my career is in, which is as a technology consultant. But I am a student of the word. And this is not one of the things that I have to perfect. Going through the Bible, reading the Bible, engaging with scripture is something that you do not have to get right. There is no right or wrong way to do it. There is only if you did or if you didn't, because the Holy Spirit will meet us here. It will meet us here at our intention to engage with the word. So we don't have to worry about if it's right or wrong, or if we're doing it right. Okay? So that's why I refuse to get, frustrated when these little things happen. This is not what I do for my day job. This is just a hobby. YouTube is just a hobby. So, there, to people who would say something about me correcting stuff live, that's what I want to say to you. Okay, I'm done now. So I'm going to present again from Canva, using Canva to present. Click on present. So it's telling me that this is my presenter window. I'm going to put that up there on the monitor up there. And then I'm going to drag the audience window over to this monitor. And I'm going to go into full screen. And so therefore, when I do screen share again, ta-da, it's fixed. And we're ready to go. Ha ha ha. How about them apples? Okay. So we are continuing here. So that's our plan. That's our plan for the next couple of years, what we're going to be doing in the Bible. Okay, speaking of doing stuff in the Bible and having a plan to do it, this month is Global Bible Month. And this is put out by 𝑦𝑽version, the app. This right here is my dedicated tablet for the Bible. So I use this tablet here for 𝑦𝑽version, and it has this case on it, but there's a way on there that I can sit it up, and so I can use it while I'm either in bed or at the office. But anyway, that's my 𝑦𝑽version tablet right there. And then I have a little um, e-paper ink thing that I take writing with. This is a what is it called? This is a Remarkable tablet, the small one, and then I just take my notes in there. And so when I get back to my desktop, I can see everything on there and screenshots and all that. So anyway, 𝑦𝑽version is sponsoring, I guess is the right word, this Bible month, and you can sign up at bible.com 30-day-bible-challenge. Okay, so one of the things that I have changed about the way I organize my life plan is organizing everything by date. Okay, I did that a few years ago. So when I buy something, um, and I know it's going to take me a while to use it, I always put dates on things. Like almost everything that's in the kitchen has the food stuff in the pantry, they all have dates on it. So even things that I collect or notes that I take, if it's something that I'm using, I really need to be able to date it. So since we go through the Bible every year, why not set my life plan to the reading track? So that means every year, at about mid-October to the beginning of November, we are going to be reading the Gospels. And in our reading plan, the Gospels go from week 41 to week 46 over here. No, week 45. Week 45. So that's about mid-October to the beginning of November. And so this is how it's set up right now. And I've already made note of some changes that I want to do to the days here because it's set up on a 5-day reading plan. That's our reading plan is like 15 to 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And that's how you get through the Bible in a year. But I've already gotten some of the things that I want to change about that. So I'm excited about that. That's going to actually be a way to tell the gospel story. And I know I'm going to be doing it every October, every mid-October, every beginning to the beginning of November. So, you know, some fun planning might can go around that. So I'm looking forward to what God gives us to be able to do there. Okay, harmony of the gospels. Let's see. Harmony of the gospels, that's something that I'm going to be able to use to put together the chronological plan, to really tweak it. The Logos software uses this parallel gospel reader as its name for what we would consider the harmony of the gospels, and in there it has different versions from different authors, but it is incorporated into their software platform, and there you can display parallel accounts and highlight and things like that using the powerful Logos software. Oh, I'm going backwards here. So, synoptic gospels. Okay, the gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and we talked about this last week, but they are called the synoptic gospels because they present a common view of the life, teachings, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The word synoptic comes from the Greek words syn, sin, meaning together, and opsis, view or seeing. So, synoptic literally means seeing together. They share some of the same stories, sometimes in the same order, sometimes with similar wording, and sometimes with verbatim wording. And they follow a parallel narrative structure of the life of Jesus, his ministry in Galilee, the ministry on the journey to Jerusalem, and the passion and resurrection. So this is going to be a little different because usually what I'm doing when I'm doing Bible study during the week is I'm having questions and I'm finding answers and I'm flipping all around and I'm getting help from different resources and things like that. So this time I decided to make my questions a part of what I share here on this devotional. So this it should be a fun session because it's a little bit different. Okay, so how do I? Okay, so the first question. Oh, here you go. Let me share this. So the first question that I asked Chat GPT was, why is Jesus' crucifixion events called Passion? And this was the answer. The word passion surprises many people because of how it's used in modern English. In this context, it comes from the Latin word passio, which means suffering or enduring. I didn't know that. So, when we speak of the passion of Christ, we're referring specifically to the suffering, death, and crucifixion of Jesus. The events from his agony in the Garden of Gethsemane to his death on the cross. The passion isn't about emotional intensity, but about Jesus' physical and spiritual suffering to his death. The passion isn't about emotional intensity, but about Jesus' physical and spiritual suffering leading to his death. Yeah. Okay, here's how the term developed. Latin and Greek roots. Latin, passio, meaning suffering. Greek, pathos, experience, or that is suffered. It has the same root as sympathy or pathology. Originally, it didn't mean a strong emotion, but to enduring pain or hardship. Christian usage. Early Christians used Passio Christi, the suffering of Christ, to describe the gospel accounts of the trial and crucifixion of Jesus. Over time, the English word passion took on this specialized religious meaning. Modern meaning shift. In later centuries, passion also came to mean intense emotion, love, desire, enthusiasm, etc. But its original sense, suffering, survives in the phrase, the passion of Christ. Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that. So that's just so interesting. I always wonder why it was called passion. Okay, so the next thing. Why these are real questions I had this week during Bible study. What city did Jesus' public ministry begin? Jesus' public ministry began in Capernaum, a fishing town on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee. After his baptism by John the Baptist in the Jordan River and his time of temptation in the wilderness, Jesus returned to Galilee. He was rejected in his hometown of Nazareth, where he grew up and initially preached, but Capernaum was his base of operations for his Galilean ministry. You remember, Capernaum is where he met many of the disciples: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Matthew. Matthew was the tax collecting there, and Peter and Andrew and James and John, they were fishing. They were commercial fishermen. The Gospel of Matthew specifically refers to Capernaum as Jesus's own city. It was in Capernaum that he performed many of his early miracles, taught in the synagogue, and healed many, including Peter's mother-in-law. Okay, next question. Jesus had a ministry in Galilee, but there is a Sea of Galilee. So there's a town and a sea named Galilee? This was my question. Galilee is not a town or a single city. It's a region, a district, or province. In the northern part of Israel, that is where that province is, the Gospels mentions towns and villages such as Nazareth, Capernaum, Bethsaida, and Cana that are in that region. The Sea of Galilee, also called Lake Gennesaret or Lake Tiberias, is a large freshwater lake in this region that it is named after. Jesus' ministry in Galilee is the northern region where he taught, healed, and gathered disciples and traveled. Many events like walking on water, calming the storm, and feeding the 5,000 took place around that lake or sea. Okay? And this is the map that ChatGPT rendered. And I'm not sure it's exactly right at all, because I believe Capernaum is up here. Now, Nazareth is over there, but anyway, this is what it generated. So, like they say, and like I say, we use the tools, but we fact check everything. And we use the tools to help us know which direction to take our thinking, but we don't use it to create our thinking. It gives us ideas about where to dig next, especially if we're digging in scripture. We want to make sure that we are getting our theology from the Bible and not from this robot. But it is helpful to help point us in the right direction. Okay. All that to say, I don't think this map looks right, but it's pretty. Okay, here's a different map, and this one was generated by Google Gemini with a reference of a map that was copyrighted. So it doesn't look, it resembles the copyrighted map, but it is really very, very different. And this looks right. Okay, so this is the Sea of Galilee, looking as if you were standing real tall, like real tall, and you could see 75 miles up the coast from Jerusalem to the Sea of Galilee. So you're standing in the south and looking up north. This is the view that you would see of the Sea of Galilee. That's why the other map doesn't really look right, because look where Capernaum is on this map here, which is right here. Capernaum, and the one before had the Sea of Galilee over here and Capernaum there, right? So we do have to make sure we fact checked everything. Everything. So there's Gennesaret, there's Bethsaida, Tiberias. Look, this is the Mediterranean Sea. Israel is, well, it's all kind of Israel, really, but so we could really take that out. Caesarea Philippi, Golan Heights. We know about those Golan Heights, especially when you think about Revelation. Syria, Mount Hermon. So this is a good map. I need to make sure this is spelled right, because one of the things that the AI will do is, oh my goodness, it will misspell some stuff in a minute. So we need to check on that. But so this was the map that it created, and I like that one very much. Okay, this was another map by ChatGPT, and what it's supposed to be showing is this area east of Jordan that was a part of Jesus' ministry as he got closer to Jerusalem. And of course you can see here that dead is spelled wrong. I think it's DBOC or something. That's spelled wrong. Edom looks like it's about in the right place. There's two Gazas. Phoenicia's out here in the Mediterranean Sea. That probably should be up there somewhere. The Galilee region, that looks about right. And Capernaum is here again. I don't know. I'll have to look at that. I believe it's still up here. So we'll have to look at Google Earth or something like that to just verify where that is. But in general, this area, Perea, right here, is an area that they talk about you'll see Jesus's Perean ministry. And when you go and try to find that word in the Bible, Perea is not there. So we're always verifying. We're always verifying with scripture itself, not with commentary, not with anything else, but we are taking what we know from the Bible, but we're using all these sources to point us in the right direction, like where to dig and how to put things together. But Perea isn't there. So what the Bible does call the ministry that Jesus did there, it calls it the ministry beyond the Jordan. Like it'll say something like Jesus traveled beyond the Jordan, and there towns and stuff there, and they put Perea on there as a map. And there's this great explanation that makes a lot of sense for why they call it the Perean ministry, but that's not what the Bible calls it. So that's not what we're going to call it. We're going to call it the ministry beyond the Jordan. Okay? Okay. All right. So here was my last question. I understand why John, the Gospel of John, isn't traditionally called a synoptic gospel. But what name can we give it so we don't leave it out from having a category of or a label? Now, if that isn't something a scholar would ask, I don't know. I'm not a scholar, but I figured that, hey, if we're going to have a category for Matthew, Mark, and Luke, calling those the synoptic gospels, so what does that make John? Well, what I found out is what that makes John, in a lot of people's mind, is just the fourth gospel. It is the fourth gospel after Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and then you get another one called John. And some people just leave it at that. But then I got into this huge, long study about that from there, about that question. That started with that question, rather. So here we go. So I'm going to put my screen back on here, and this was the answer. Okay, we might not get through all of this, but it was completely fascinating. Really, really fascinating. So this was my question to ChatGPT. I understand why John isn't, so we need a label. Excellent question. And one that theologians, biblical scholars, and teachers have wrestled with for centuries. You're right that John doesn't fit into the synoptic gospels, which are called synoptic because that means seeing together because they share similar structure, content, and chronology. That makes sense. Since John is distinct, scholars and tradition have used several ways to give it its own label. So it isn't left uncategorized. Here are the main options. The fourth gospel. This is the simplest. It's neutral and descriptive. You'll see this in academic writing. In the fourth gospel of John, in the fourth gospel, John presents a high Christology. Okay? Prose, universally understood, avoids theological bias, and more of a positional label than a thematic one is one of the cons. Okay, so we could label John as the spiritual gospel. And this comes from this guy. And he said, John, last of all, perceiving that the external facts had been made plain in the other gospels, composed a spiritual gospel. Okay. This label highlights how John's gospel emphasizes Jesus' divinity, symbolism, and deeper meaning rather than a straightforward historical narrative. Prose. It captures John's distinct theological path, and there's a con there. Not all scholars like to suggest it's more spiritual than others. That makes sense. Okay. And then some call it the Johannine Gospel. It connects John's Gospel to his other writings in John 1, 2, and 3, the epistles of 1, 2, and 3, and Revelation. It is a distinct literary and theological category, and that made sense. Okay, so that was this question, and then it gave me this prompt here. Would you like me to explain why John differs so much from the synoptics in content and style? For example, the timeline, miracles, and theology. Now, y'all, this is where Chat GPT can get you and push you right on down a hole, and you can find yourself there for hours. Okay. And of course, the way I set up my documents is, uh oh, the way I set up my documents is the stuff that I say is in orange, and then I post the stuff that the chatbot says in a different color. Okay, let's dig into why the Gospel of John differs so much from the synoptic Gospels. Think of it like this. The synoptics and John are telling the same story, the life and mission of Jesus, but from different lenses. So it goes through the timeline and geography, ministry length, 1 year versus 3 years. Focus, mostly in Galilee and in Jerusalem, and alternates between Galilee and Jerusalem. Cleansing of the temple near the end, at the beginning. So I know when I see that I have put a verse in this pink color here, this means that I've read through this answer and picked out the scriptures and probably put them on a list somewhere. Style and language, short parables, long reflective discourses, miracles, only 7 signs before the resurrection in John and many in the others. Christology, understanding of who Jesus is. Christology. Isn't that, oh, that's a great Christology, understanding who Jesus is. I love that. Jesus' identity. In the synoptics, it was the Messiah, Son of Man, teacher, miracle worker. In John, it is the eternal word, Logos, made flesh. In the beginning was the Word. How he reveals God. In the synoptics, through parables and deeds, and in John, by declaring his unity with the Father. I and the Father are one. I am sayings, they're not in the synoptics, but it is central in John, echoing God's name from Exodus 3:14. And I didn't highlight that. I didn't highlight that. Okay, I'll have to do that later. Who do you say I am? Matthew 16:15. And John, before Abraham, I am. Okay. John's gospel has what scholars call high Christology. It starts from Jesus' divinity rather than building up to it. Purpose and audience. The synoptics aim to recount the good news for teaching and evangelism. John explicitly states its purpose. These are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. John 20:31. John's purpose is faith formation, not just historical narrative. All right, so that's a summary. And so then it asks another, would you like to do a side-by-side comparison of a specific event? So the first one it chose was feeding the 5,000. And in the synoptics, it's a remote place near Bethsaida. I always want to call that Bethesda. And in John, it's near the Sea of Galilee and Tiberias. Reason for the crowd joining is different. Who provides the food? The disciples find it in the synoptic gospels, and a boy offers 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes in John. Difference in prayer, difference in distribution, and difference in what happens after the miracle. That is the 5,000 miracle feeding. John transforms a simple miracle story into a theological revelation about Jesus' identity as the source of spiritual life. Okay. What this tells us about John's approach. Focus for John is who Jesus is, and the focus for the synoptics is what Jesus does. Audience understanding, witnesses amazed by power. John, readers invited to deeper faith. The style, straightforward and narrative versus symbolic and reflective. Theological message, Jesus meets physical and spiritual needs versus Jesus himself, the bread, the sustenance of life. My Lord. So John isn't just retelling the story, he's interpreting it. He shapes the events into a sign pointing to Jesus' divinity and the Logos made flesh who gives life to the world. So it got me again. I had to say yes. Same kind of style for the trial before Pilate. And the big reveal here, okay, let's go. Length of the account, very detailed versus brief. Location, Pilate's headquarters, but details minimal. And John comes through with the details. Pilate's dialogue with Jesus. Pilate's question, are you the king of the Jews? That comes from the synoptics. And in John, it's the same, but it's followed by a long theological conversation. Jesus speaks freely. My kingdom is not of this world. Jesus replied to Pilate. And in the synoptics, he just says, you say so. Brief and descriptive and evasive. So John presents Jesus not as a helpless victim, but as a sovereign teacher who reveals truth under trial. The theme of truth, embodiment of divine truth. The accusations from the crowd. Here are some differences, reasons for condemnation, some differences there. I mean, I love using the chat bot to point me to these kinds of things because I don't think about all of this stuff, but I can go right to the word and verify it for myself. The presentation, behold the man and behold your king. That is two powerful statements appear only in John. Behold the man, John 19:5, and behold your king, John 19:14. They serve as theological proclamations, not just courtroom moments. Pilate unknowingly becomes a witness to Jesus' true identity. Now, Pilate was right to be a little bit nervous about accusing a, falsely charging a innocent person, right? So Jesus' demeanor. In John, he was majestic, calm, in control. Even Pilate seemed small next to him. While in the synoptics, he is portrayed as silent, submissive, suffering, and as a servant. Underlying message, the innocent Messiah is condemned versus the divine word stands before human power, revealing truth and exposing hypocrisy. Okay? John's version of the trial isn't simply about injustice, it's about revelation. Jesus isn't the one being judged, the world is. Now, I don't have to look that up. I know that. I know that. So it asks if I wanted to go through again to do a side-by-side comparison of the crucifixion scene. And I let it do that. I put it in the document. But as you can see here, I started reading it. Oh, maybe I did. Maybe I did finish it. But it goes, the reason I know I finished it is because when I see the highlights and stuff, that means that I actually went through here because I changed this to pink. So that means I know I went through here. But there was a question. Oh, when I have something that I feel like the chatbot is trying to give me theology, that goes in green, and I go searching in the word to come up with what my view should be, because I don't know about this. Symbolize Eucharist and baptism. Does the word say that explicitly? Or is that one of those religious things that we've kind of picked up from somewhere? So I don't know about that. So those are the things you really have to watch. Okay. Well, it did finally. I'm going to go ahead and stop this stream. It's been long enough. But there, oh, this must be where I stopped, because you see how this isn't formatted. When I copy it out of the chat bot, it looks like this. So this is how I know where to start when I go back into my study sessions, because it's all jumbled up, and this is probably where my notes stop too. So how I use these documents is I will put them inside of a an app where I can actually, this raindrop.io app, where I can actually use it to search through the PDFs. Now, I really tried using Microsoft Word to do, not Microsoft Word, OneDrive, to upload the PDFs, and it's supposed to be able to search through PDFs, but Google Drive and OneDrive just doesn't do a great job of that. Raindrop does a really, really good job of that. And I think you get like 10 gigs of storage for like $28 a year or something like that. So it's really inexpensive. And so I will use that Raindrop there. And this is the last thing I have on my agenda here. And it is just this beautiful scenery coming into Jerusalem. Okay, see how to make it play again. Coming into Jerusalem one more time. And that was created in Canva. Isn't that wonderful? So anyway, I don't know if you guys were there, but Canva had its launch some new products this week, and I'm really excited about some of them. So, but anyway, this has been super duper fun, and I pray that there was something here that intrigued you to just look into the word a little bit more, engage in the word, make it a part of what makes your days and your life work, because that's exactly what this live stream is intended to be. It's kind of documenting my journey going through the Bible as a student, and not trying to be anybody's teacher, not trying to be anybody's preacher, just a student of the word, wanting to have evidence that I did this and that I kept my promise to myself and to the Lord to stay engaged, because that is a wonderful way to stay in relationship, is to stay engaged. So God bless you. Until next time, bye for now.